course, the rural hospitals. Everyone's talking about the rural hospitals that although we have this fund to support them, there's going to be massive cuts, over $1 trillion in Medicaid to rural hospitals. Well, we're not exactly rural, but in our communities, we might as well be the way our medical landscape is. So there's no difference than a Lithia Springs or South Fulton than some small area down in South Georgia on the medical side of things.
Greetings, my posse. Welcome to the Roundup with Rodney and Rodney. I'm Rodney J. Littles.
I am Rodney Butler. Rodney, how's it going tonight, man?
Bro, I can't complain, man. The summer is going too fast for me. All this rain, man. I miss my sun time on the Belizean beach, but I'm hanging, man.
I hear you, man. I'm just gonna let the audience know that I got the crud. It's back. I've had it for the last couple of days, but you know what? The show must go on, man. As we say, right?
Bro.
The show must go on. We got to give people what they want. Got to give them what they need.
We're the Black Man's Roundtable.
But anyway, Rodney, I'm gonna let you go ahead on and bring our very special guest on tonight. And without further ado, and also, I just want to make sure that people know that we have a very, very, very hot topic segment tonight, and a whole spotlight that's going to blow your mind. So, stick around. So, Rodney, take it away, brother. You got it.
Well, yes, sir. Well, Rodney, I want you to know that this month, August, in 2004, they started the National Black Business Month. Yes, sir. So we're 20 plus years in, and tonight I'm so happy to have this young fella. He grew up in a family that had a construction business and were big in the construction industry. Graduated from a top college. Is a brilliant businessman. And he's recently elected to the Georgia State House of Representatives, the none other than Robert Dawson, State Rep, House District 65. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man, where you're from, what got you interested in community service, and tell us a little bit about your business before you talk about the State House.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here. Thanks for hosting me tonight. I'm excited for a hearty conversation. State Rep Robert Dawson. I represent Georgia's 65th district, which is a large swath of Fulton County and northern Coweta County, South Fulton, Union City, East Point, Atlanta, Palmetto, Coweta, and Chattahoochee Hills. So, born and raised right next door in Birmingham, Alabama. I call South Fulton home. Proud resident of South Fulton here, the city of South Fulton, and you have a background. You mentioned my family background in construction, which I still carry that on, and then I'm also in the IT technology field, financial tech, cyber security space as well.
So you're in high demand.
Right now, it's going well.
Good. Well, it's a pleasure to have you. I know that you ran when the first City of South Fulton charter was passed. You ran for mayor, young whippersnapper, and no one knew him, and he stayed the route. He is now a state representative, and full disclosure, he actually is my state representative, Rodney. That was by accident. I don't know how he just moved in the neighborhood. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, and I know both of you guys from the civic work that you do. So I've been watching y'all in the community for years. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
So what got you motivated to get in public service?
So like I said, coming from Birmingham, Alabama, you kind of inherit that, right? Being on the battleground of civil rights, and it was great to be on the Black Man Round Table here too, because just like you guys are doing here, I had this even, from a young man in high school, then returning to Birmingham from college. A lot of people, they see me. I have a golden resume, but I had to find my way, like so many other Black men and men in general. It was brothers like you in the community that saw something in me, reached out, reached back to me, and got me involved in this thing, whether it was working with elected officials as interns and campaigns, or working for the local black newspaper. So I just feel like I have a debt to pay because they really did, identify me, back me, support me, give me a million chances as a young man. So I want to do the same thing, give back to the community.
Well, what prompted you to want to look at the state level? Was it a vacancy? What was the circumstances that caused you to run?
Yeah, and that's another thing. I didn't, success for me in politics wasn't overnight. I ran 3 times and was unsuccessful. But you either win or you learn. And that's what we did. We knew we were on the path and we knew we were building something. We were out there in the community meeting with people, saw that there was a space, there's an opportunity to serve. I'm somewhat of a workaholic and I have this bandwidth, so I wanted to use it. And I'll never forget, I was at an event actually in Gwinnett, and I
Hmm.
found that State House 65 would be an open seat, which is, I think, was the obstacle that was stopping me, trying to run against an incumbent. Is 92% of the times in Georgia, the incumbent wins the election. So that kind of explains some of the losses. Got lucky, we had this empty seat, and worked hard, went door to door. Every Girl Scout cookie we bought them. Church visits, all that, and here we are.
So, what kind of feedback did you get when you were campaigning? What were people looking for as it related to the state government?
From a state level, I think one thing that we're suffering from is there's a void in black leadership being able to impact in a Republican dominated Republican majority. So I think it's just about reading the room and finding a way, even though we don't have that majority in the state house, is 180 representatives, 100 are Republican, 80 are Democrat, need 91 votes to get anything passed. So even with that, I think if we're wise and we work across the aisle, we still can get things done. So I think what people are looking for is just results, no matter what the political climate is. Let's start where we are, use what we got, do what we can.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. So, tell us a little bit about your experience as a freshman in the minority in
Uh,
the Georgia State House.
Yeah, it's like I've been shot out of a cannon. I'm still on my thank you tour, so I already told you guys thank you. Thanks to the voters for, getting me here. But so much opportunity, you learn so much from the state budget to just seeing how the sausage is cooked. The great thing about this thing is you meet so many people who are civically engaged, lobbyists, special interest people. I met just brilliant people in the community doing meaningful work. That keeps me going. That's really the most motivating factor. And we have all these young children, young families, and even seniors with a bunch of wisdom. So it's really an overwhelming experience in a good way because there's so much to be done.
So, tell us what committees you were assigned to and how you're going to make an impact in those areas.
Yeah, my big committee that I was able to get as a freshman is agriculture, which
Mm.
agriculture and forestry is the largest industry, largest business in Georgia. So I'm enjoying learning more about that, and getting involved in that space. A lot of exciting things. And it's not just agriculture; it's agriculture and consumer affairs. So we get to do bills that impact our wallets and our budgets. Then my favorite committee that I'm on is intergovernmental coordination, which allows me to see all the local issues from all the counties and all the cities in the state, and it puts me in a good position for our region in that I can be a watchdog there. Anything that's going to happen or impact us locally, I get to see it first. So, and then information and audits is one of those committees where they kind of put freshmen on ice, and this is check you out. That's my third committee. I'm
Oh, okay. Okay.
kind of a fishbowl until they find out what kind of guy you are.
Gotcha. Well, I know we have a huge budget surplus, rainy day fund, but we do know that the big, quote, beautiful bill has passed and it's going to impact states and local governments. Have you had a chance to take a look at what the impact might be on Georgia?
Yeah, I have a piece running right now in the Noonan Times Herald all about the impacts of the big beautiful bill on the Georgia budget, and then I also have the AJC is going to be picking that up later this month, so be on the lookout for that. Of course, I have a copy of the budget right here. And we're fortunate, this is a $75 billion budget for the state of Georgia, billion with the B, and we have a reserve of about $13.8 billion. So we're in a great position coming out of COVID. The issue now is that this big, beautiful bill shakes everything up, even for Georgia. And now we have to remap our way, find a new way. And it's already a challenge to get the funds. Though we're wealthy as a state, those funds aren't trickling down to our region. So that's
Oh,
one thing I've been focusing on. My number one goal, if I do nothing else, is to upskill our region. When I say upskill, better vocational training, IT training, grown jobs is what I like to call them. We really do need good jobs and good opportunities for small businesses, and I think that'll impact everything. So that's my number one charge. That's what I've been focusing on, upskilling this region for the new economy, the economy of the future.
so what other issues do you see that this bill may impact on Georgia?
Well, following up what I was saying in the article, let's be clear, we had a very successful recovery from COVID. We were on the ropes for a while, and I think that's a backdrop to the economy for all of us. Really for the citizens and our families, our neighbors, a lot of us are still recovering from COVID. That was a huge event. Georgia was able to recover well and build those reserves back up, keep our budget up. Then we got hit by Hurricane Helene.
Mm-hmm.
There's been over $1 billion in funds between the state and the federal government cleaning up that mess that really
Right.
impacted our agriculture, our forestry, $5.5 billion in damages. So all of that being said, now what the big beautiful bill does, and I hope we'll get a chance to get into it, you're seeing a lot of problems now that we're going to face as a state, and
Mm.
Medicaid, medical treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Millions of people could be knocked off of Medicaid and then SNAP
Mm-hmm.
benefits, which, again, if you paid attention to what happened in COVID and if you're out here on the doors, there is an issue with food insecurity. People still, budgets are tight. People are just making it by. And then another thing, I talked about giving back to the young people. I have a lot of interns.
Okay.
Literally already before the big beautiful bill, the Georgia State students, Morehouse students, Spelman students, they're hurting. Pell Grant changes, housing is expensive, all the student loan issues. So now all that has been compounded in so many ways.
Yes,
Wow.
and Rodney, you
Yeah.
definitely since we're talking about how it's going to impact, right? Um, Rep Dawson, you went right into what I was going to wanted you to talk about, which is the social services, the healthcare and social services, how it's going to affect, how this big beautiful bill was going to affect Georgia, specifically, and you hit on and education. Education was my next one, but you hit on Medicaid funding. You hit on SNAP, and I'm sure you probably talked about WIC and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
But what I would like to know is, well, first of all, we've talked about it on here before, and we've let the people know that in this big beautiful bill, you're not going to see anything that's going to affect your Medicare, or your Medicaid, within this first year and a half, right? Because that's how slick they're being. And I want you to just hit on that a little bit, because they waiting right until after the election, right after the election. So people are like, well, I don't see any changes or whatever in my Medicaid, so everything must be okay. I don't see anything in none of the social service programs, so everything is okay. But I want you to just hone in a little bit and let this audience know that it is really after the midterm elections of next year. This is how slick they are. After the midterm elections of next year is when you're really gonna see SNAP benefits and Medicaid, especially SNAP, all but go away. Can you talk? Let them know a little bit more about that, Rep Dawson.
Yeah, so with the Medicaid, we have 11 million Georgians, so hundreds of thousands, if not millions, definitely millions will be impacted by this. And as you say, it's real subtle the way it's working. We already know in our region, not enough hospitals. I'm learning more. This is an education for me. I don't have all the answers. I'm actually practicing and learning, and it seems like a big part of this whole education or this whole medical thing is that the type of hospitals that we need aren't profitable for the corporations. But some of the changes that they're putting in on the Medicaid side, all these new work requirements, if you're able-bodied from 19 to 64, you have to work now or engage in community service or some type of work training to of at least 80 hours a month to continue on Medicaid, and that's going to be tough. And also more fees that are going to affect the way hospitals want to operate in the area. So just so many provider fees, and of course the rural hospitals. Everyone's talking about the rural hospitals that although we have this fund to support them, there's going to be massive cuts, over $1 trillion in Medicaid to rural hospitals. Well, we're not exactly rural, but in our communities, we might as well be the way our medical landscape is. So there's no difference than in a Lithia Springs or South Fulton than some small area down in South Georgia on the medical side of things.
And Rodney, one more before we
Sure,
get back to you. You're finishing it up.
sure.
Is that education? You had already spoke on it a little bit, but what I want you to do is, and you kind of hit it already, but a little bit more specific on how the impact of education with the big beautiful bill, how it specifically and how different does it impact HBCUs
Yeah.
versus your state schools?
Yeah. Great question. Again, I was speaking to some people who are on the board or affiliated with the board over there at Morris Brown, and they're hurting now for funding. And then, of course, I've had an academic background, did a lot of studying, worked at some schools, and some of the stuff, just even me looking back to what got me through um, college and to get that funded, they wiped away a lot of that, like graduate plus loans. They're going to be eliminated in July of next year. There's all these caps on how much you can borrow. So I don't see how many people can even graduate from college anymore. Graduate students have a lifetime cap. If you're going to law school or dental school, there's a cap on how much you can borrow, but the tuition is way more than that. Same thing with there's now an overall borrowing cap. So if you're starting as a community college student and going all the way to a PhD or a professional degree, now there's a cap, a hard cap of how much you can borrow. Pell Grant expansion. There's some good things in there, but for every good thing they do, now you can use Pell Grants for short-term vocational training to become a plumber or electrician. So there's a good thing. There's a couple good things in this bill, but at the same time, there's all these traps. I'll point out one good thing that Trump and I agree on. When I first was elected, I called for baby bonds that with those billions, that $14 billion surplus, I'd like to take a year, say 2026, and every baby that's born in 2026 give them $1,000 or $3,000 that we let them earn compound interest on over 18 years of their lives, and then when they graduate, they can use that money to go to college or do vocational training or start a business. So he got that right. But as a whole, this is going to be very damaging to our HBCUs and even to some of our state schools. But most importantly, it's going to hurt our students. These students who are already struggling. A prime example, one of my interns, brilliant young man, Georgia State, everything right, ROTC, and he was trying to go through and get the 4-year degree first. He couldn't. He had to immediately enlist just to survive, and now come back out and try to figure out that education piece from there.
Understood.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And you know what, Rodney, is so, we may have to, because you mentioned Morris Brown specifically, and what President Kevin James has done over there, to over the past 3-4 years or whatever, to get, Morris Brown back on his feet, to get his accreditation and everything back up. And now you get hit in the face with this. Now I know Kevin, would say that it's not about me, it's about the kids. But but still, you think about that hard work. You think about that, right? And so, Rodney, we might have to get President James on the show, man. So, but anyway, Rodney, finish it up, brother.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, in wrapping it up, there's a major issue that's going around the country right now. The Republican leadership from the White House down are leaning on Republican governors to redistrict their states. Yeah. Do you to get a plurality that they would definitely win a majority back in the Congress in the 2026 midterms? Do you think that our governor would be subject to that kind of pressure? And if so, would your legislature? Do you think that your legislature, the Senate and the House, would pass something like that?
Yeah, well, we went through it here many years ago on the congressional side, but the Republicans have been so successful on the congressional front that, they've gerrymandered it enough that they're happy now. There's really not much they can do to add any more congressional seats without causing more lawsuits. But even these state house seats, that's one reason I'm here. We had this barrage of redistricting on the local level. Here in Georgia, it's more of a state house and state senate thing. That thing is so gerrymandered, and they know what they're doing. They're drawing these districts, and it's a generational plan. I see it. The more I learn, I see, hey, next time they're just going to keep moving the maps so that the majority stays a majority. But luckily, we're not going to face what Texas is facing. But it's almost an existential crisis to imagine that this is the level of politics that we're playing. We're moving the goalposts like we are.
Thank you, sir. Well, in your closing statements, tell folks how they can reach you if they live in your district, and what messages you wanted to part with our audience before you leave.
Yeah, so that's it. I'm robertforgeorgia.com is the website. Robert for Georgia on all platforms. I think it's all hands on deck right now. We really have to re-envision what we're doing economically, and we're gonna have to embrace vocational training, of course, education, small businesses, and I'm building relationships personally and working across the aisle. My goal is to bring some of that funding, some of Georgia's wealth to our backyard and to our communities. Those students have to have the training I'm talking about, and then our families need grown jobs so they can be upwardly mobile, and then of course our seniors need to be able to age in place and have financial dignity so they can pass that legacy on down to us. So a lot of work to be done in the financial space. That's where I'm planning my post, and let's see if we can bring some of the money home.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Any last questions, Rod?
No, I just want to, thank Rep Dawson for being on. He is, you're a freshman, but brother, I'm gonna tell you right now, the way you know what you're doing and the work that you're doing. I ask anyone, make sure you click on the Black Man's Roundtable platform, click on his photograph and look at the work that this brother is doing. It's going to take you right there. It's not going to take you anywhere strange. And look at the work this brother is doing. He's just a freshman, so I think that it's time to maybe, Rodney, you hear me talk about it all the time, out with the old and in with the new, so, and I'm saying that for somebody that's getting old, so, or old already, I don't know, whatever they call old now. But right. I just love to see fresh, no pun intended, but I love to see fresh thoughts out there, in the State House, because people are learning how important these representatives and senators that work up under these right. state houses are. So anyway, right. We definitely appreciate you being on, Rep. Dawson, and we look forward to having you to come back on this platform when it's time to run again. You represent a lot of people, and Rodney, we'll get him back on for an hour so he can do his thing, man.
All right.
Good.
Thank you so much for joining the Black Man's Roundtable on the Roundup with Rodney and Rodney.
Thank you, sir.
Rep. Dawson.
Thank y'all.
We'll see you in the streets and the suites.
All right. Sure, yeah, Rodney. Sure. That brother does not sound like a freshman.
Nah.
We've had some freshmen on, and
right.
It kind of sound like freshmen in a way. It's like they're just trying to get their feet wet and trying to figure out what's going on. Not to say that he's not doing that as well, getting your feet wet or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But but he already putting in some work that that people that's been around those halls for a while, has are doing. He's already doing it.
Exactly.
So we appreciate it. But look, Rodney, I know that we have a hot topic and a very good host spotlight that you want to shine a light on. So, brother, let you get started with the hot topic.
Well, Rodney, there's been so many distractions, so many public relations and drama-related activities. It was so hard to focus on the meat of the matter and not be distracted by these distractions, because it's very easy to get lost in the weeds, man. I had a hard time sleeping last night trying to figure out just how to get through the weeds, man, and the tariffs. You and I talked about this. This is what people are not clearly aware of what's happening. Yep. So I did some research and I got some folks I can quote, because this is above my pay grade normally, and I wanted to make sure I got it right.
That's what you do.
That's right, my brother. Tariff rebate checks may sound awesome. You heard about that, right? Rebate checks from the tariffs. But they could be quite dangerous. Let's dig into it. U.S. tariffs have surged to the highest level since the 1930s as the centerpiece of the current administration's efforts to revive American manufacturing. President Donald Trump's sweeping tariff regime is generated so much revenue for the federal government that Washington could eventually return some of its windfall to taxpayers. A rebate check. Does that sound familiar? Oh, but the last time there was a rebate check, there was an economic crisis for real. Mm-hmm. For real. We're not in a recession. Even though Trump's historically high tariffs were designed to revive American manufacturing and to help chip away at the national debt, pay down on the debt, right? The president sounds open to using tariffs for another purpose. What did I just say? Rebate checks. So, some of these things that we do by executive order, you can really, you can't implement just by executive order. Appropriating money is one of them. So, Senator Josh Hawley proposed a bill last week. It's called the American Worker Rebate Act, that would use tariff revenue to send rebate checks of at least $600 per adult and dependent child. A family of four could end up with at least $2,400 of money from the federal government. I remember hearing on the news that this is the exact amount they said, $2,400, the average increase cost to a household because of the proposed tariffs at that time they did these numbers. Because, they change.
Right.
So, but the tariff rebate checks, if they become a reality, could backfire by intensifying the price hikes caused by tariffs. Economists tell CNN. That's the source. Quote, doing stimulus checks might fuel inflation at a point where tariffs are already inflationary. This just risks making the problem worse, end quote, says Stephanie Roth, chief economist of the Wolf Research. It could become quite dangerous. Well, tariff revenues have gone up, as I said, definitely have. But, we could end up with a shortage of certain goods if risks become very inflationary, Roth said. That means they won't be imported because they're too expensive. So there'll be shortages, causes prices go up. Supply and demand is what I learned in economics.
Yep.
In July alone, the United States collected almost $30 billion in tariff revenue, 242% more than the same month last year, according to the Treasury Department. My sources, bruh. You can check my sources. Since April, tariff revenue has totaled about $200 billion, triple the same period of 2024. Normally, direct payments to Americans are reserved for break-the-glass emergencies like COVID or the September 11th terrorist attacks or the Great Recession. Trump slammed President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris in 2024 for enacting a stimulus package that caused the worst inflation in American history, he said. Inflation spiked to a 4-decade high in 2022 for a variety of reasons, though some economists do say excessive stimulus contributed. I can see that. People had the money to spend. I can see that. But they didn't know what the formula was. They were just trying to save the economy. By contrast, there is no economic emergency today that could justify stimulus checks. But stimulus checks in a full employment economy is like a dessert before eating your spinach, said David Kelly, chief global strategist for JP Morgan Asset Management. Quote, we're running out of workers. If you give consumers more money to spend, it will just give you higher prices, end quote. These are professionals, bruh. Professionals. So that's what we're dealing with the basic issues of the tariffs, which is what I was concerned about. Now, there was a comment early on that we were going to use tariffs to reduce the national debt. But consumer goods are leading source of tariff revenue, accounting to $9.8 billion or 13.5% of tariff revenue collected in May. Although Trump likes to brag about billions of dollars tariffs are, quote, bringing in, this revenue is not coming from overseas. It is being paid by U.S. importers to the federal government. Padding the general fund of the Treasury Department uses to pay Washington's bills. But it's not going to reducing debt. They want to put it towards rebate. Some companies are opting out of passing along at least some of the cost of tariffs to consumers in the form of higher prices. But that's going to end. They can't keep doing that.
That's right.
Tonight I heard on the news that restaurants' prices are going up because inflation is kicking them, which means less people are going to eat out. It's a ripple effect. Some companies are going to pass along at least some of the cost of tariffs to consumers, as I said, in higher prices. Collecting a tax and then handing it back to taxpayers makes no policy sense, end quote, said Kimberly Clausing, non-resident senior fellow at the Peterson Institute. Quote, it keeps all the distortions and efficiency losses associated with tariffs, but without any of the fiscal benefit, end quote. So I don't want to keep quoting the president. I just want to put it in some so everybody understands. Deficit hawks fear that redirecting a chunk of the tariff revenues will undermine the effort at a time when Trump's sweeping tax cuts and spending package is projected to add trillions to the national debt. Quote, while the money is only a fraction of the borrowing from recent tax cuts, it will at least help to offset those costs, said Maya McGinnis, president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a deficit watchdog group. Quote, the last thing we should do is give away the money, end quote. So we're in a situation where, because there's so much uncertainty, and they just gave China another 90-day pass on implementing tariffs. Mm-hmm. And they've given certain waivers to Chinese products coming in that are needed in the electronics industry. So what's going on here? We've alienated our closest neighbors, our two largest trading blocks in this hemisphere, Mexico and Canada. Tourism is down because of this tariff, so-called trade war. But the bottom line is, Congress really should be handling this tariff issue. And the reason that the executive branch is playing on this, they're using a law that doesn't really apply, but no one has successfully gotten it through the courts or to a court that will finally tell us the truth that this is a faux, hoax emergency that the tariffs are being utilized by the executive branch. That's the bottom line, gentlemen. We're being played, bamboozled, led astray.
Yes, yes, and yes. You know, what this administration is also planning on, Rodney, is that people, they understand that most citizens, that's why we do a civics 101 on the other platform, right? But
Yes,
they
sir.
understand that most citizens don't understand the global economy and how it works. So it's easy for this administration to get people to buy off into the whole America first and all that kind of stuff. And people are like, yeah, we should be taking care of, we should be feeding our own people. Well, but there's a reason for diplomacy. There's a budget already set for that. So it ain't like we're spending something that we are just taking out of the purse. It's already budgeted. USAID and all these other, programs that the country has for that. And when you stop and when you make people believe that they are about to pay, it's kind of like a kid with a lemonade stand, right? If you,
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's still almost that simple,
Good
right?
analogy, yeah.
Yeah, if you keep giving a bunch of money, okay, to all the people, let's say you're trying to make your daughter or your son who has this lemonade stand feel like they are, earning a lot of money or whatever, right? That they're doing very well with their lemonade stand. And you start to hand out, quarters or whatever the lemonade costs to a whole bunch of people in the neighborhood. But oh, by the way, you forgot to load up on the amount of lemons to make your lemonade, and then you go run down to Kroger or some other store and they just don't have it. Now you got all these people running around all these quarters and there's nothing to buy. There's no lemonade to buy. That is almost really that's what's going to cause, that is how the inflation is going up, because you know what? He just want for the feds to just the lower interest rates.
Right.
Just because he just want to look good, and
Right.
you're firing people that that has nothing to do, and not nothing to do, but that is not, don't have a total control over job
No,
numbers
sir.
and all of this stuff. This stuff's been working for decades and decades, and it's amazing how quickly people will be bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray, run amok, like you're saying, because they don't understand exactly how the economy works, and definitely the global economy, Rodney.
Exactly, my brother, exactly. So I thought it was important that we cut through the maze of distractions and focus on what's really going to have how this major policy, I call it a trade war, is having on the average person in this country, regardless of ethnicity, gender,
Exactly.
persuasion. Don't matter.
They're
We're
gonna see
all
in a
in
minute,
this
brother.
same boat. We're in the
They're
same
going to see in
boat.
a minute. They're going to see
We're
in
in
a
the same
minute
boat. They
that
pulled
all
around
this
and find it out.
skin complexion stuff, they're going to see that it just doesn't matter.
Nah,
You thought
bro.
you was fooled. You thought you was voting for
Yes.
something. You thought you was getting
Yes.
something for nothing. You thought that some kind of privilege was going to happen. Well, I tell you what, you're really going to see after these midterm elections on what what that big beautiful bill is about to do to you.
Right?
But look, right now I don't want to belabor, because I
Oh,
know
man.
that you have your whole spotlight,
Bruh,
and
bruh,
the
bruh.
the MBDA
Yes,
is
sir. Yes, sir.
something that is very important, and especially
sir.
to the people that listen to this platform. So, brother, let's
sir.
get into the host spotlight and shine a light on this MBDA
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
situation.
My brother, we're talking about National Black Business Month. Okay?
Yep.
So this directly impacts upon that. In 1969, the Republican President Richard Nixon created the Minority Business Development Agency. Actually, it was called the Office of Minority Business Enterprise, and later it was renamed to Minority Business Development Agency. It was designed to bolster the growth of minority-owned businesses and help level the playing field to address economic inequality. Since its creation, the agency has become a force in helping companies owned by people of color find new sources of capital and federal contracts. During President Biden's term, the agency helped create more than 23,000 jobs and assisted such enterprises in securing over $3.2 billion worth of contracts. $1 billion worth of contracts. The Minority Business Development Agency, or commonly referred to as MBDA, provides access to market-based financing solutions, access to capital, facilitates teaming arrangements and mergers and acquisitions to scale up, partners with private sector Fortune 500 firms to provide access to global supply chains. That gets you in the business, right? Transitions minority 8A SBA program graduate firms to the private sector. The 8A Small Business Administration program provides set-aside contracts to minority firms that are qualified for X number of years. So you have a guaranteed base of income. But when you graduate, if you haven't built up access to private sector contracts to begin to match what you were getting from the federal government, once those federal government contracts are over, you're out of business. So MBDA had a major role in transitioning those companies that were being brought up to scale to get contracts from the Fortune 500 companies. Isn't this what America's about? It develops policy recommendations that address minority business inequities. We know what those are, okay? In March 2025, the continuing reduction of the federal bureaucracy executive order mandated that nearly all of the roughly 50 employees received reduction in force notices. They were laid off, fired. The remaining 5 career employees received assignments to other agencies. On Wednesday, April 9, 2025, leaving the agency to be staffed by one political appointee. While the agency remains statutorily authorized, this shift effectively guts the agency and ensures its dormancy. Bro, with an executive order from a program that Republicans started that has made a major impact in creating jobs in our community and contributing to the GDP of this country. It did not take away 3.2 billion in work. It put it into the economy. Well, I guess people would say, well, why do you need, what is this all about, minority business? Well, I'll tell you, I was in the room when they were putting this together with the folks from New York, Boston, and Maryland, Black-owned businesses. And their emphasis in doing this was to address the issue of reparations without using the term reparations. The intent was to benefit descendants of chattel slavery so they could begin to make an impact in job creation in their communities and the inequities in wealth building. So, what we're talking about this month, we're talking about the price of reparations for descendants of chattel slavery. Because if they're going to eliminate a program like this that does nothing but help this country, then we need to talk about reparations. The descendants of chattel slavery in the United States continue to bear the cost of slavery and Jim Crow through significant wealth and health disparities, as well as ongoing systematic disadvantages due to racial discrimination. Here's the economic costs, so we're all on the same page. Stolen wealth. Enslaved people were denied wages for their labor, resulting in a massive wealth transfer to enslavers of this nation. And the descendants of enslavers are the ones who are benefiting from that. Studies estimate the total stolen wealth to be between $6 to $14 trillion. A study published by the RSF journal shows. Wait a minute. $16 to $14 trillion, Rodney?
And that's a generous, that's a conservative estimate, by the way, Rodney.
Hello? But that's, we can back that up with a study, though. I can't do the rest, but that I can't. But now listen to this carefully. I recently found out that shortly before Dr. King was assassinated, he was organizing a meeting in Washington to demand $20 billion a year for 10 years to go to descendants of chattel slavery. $20 billion a year for 10 years. That's $200 billion. That's cheap compared to $6 to $14 trillion. And they didn't even want to hear it. The racial wealth gap. The legacy of slavery and Jim Crow contributes to a vast wealth gap between black and white Americans, with estimates suggesting that a typical white family has a net worth more than 8 times that of a typical black family, according to recent studies. 8 times, bro. And I'm told that within the next 15 years, the average net worth of a person be specific, of black people is going to be zero, the average net worth. So that means some people will have a positive net worth, but some people are going to be so far in debt, they'll have a negative net worth, and it'll balance off so we have zero. How can this country be strong if everyone is not contributing and benefiting from it and contributing? Limited access to capital. Minority Business Development Agency did a great job working with the SBA and the 7A loan program. Great coordination. I know because I was a contractor. I worked for a contractor that had a contract with the Minority Business Development Agency. We had contracts in Albany and Syracuse, Chicago, Long Island, Connecticut. I worked all over doing specifically work that the MBDA was designed to do. So I've seen it from the inside, Rodney. I've seen the smile on people's faces when we had a closing for a mortgage for a sister to buy a building that she was renting for her beauty parlor and had an apartment upstairs. She had a home-based business on the main drag. That's the kind of work that I was able to do working with the Minority Business Development Agency back in the day. Jimmy Carter was president at that time, as a matter of fact. So limited access to capital. Descendants of enslaved people continue to face barriers in accessing capital, credit, and business opportunities, further perpetuating economic inequality. So reparations, the debate. The concept of reparations, which involves making amends for past injustice, has gained traction as a potential solution to addressing the ongoing harms of slavery and Jim Crow. We know that Fulton County, city of Atlanta, in our region, and I happen to be on the Fulton County Reparations Task Force.
I'm going to talk about it when you finish. I'm just waiting.
So we have to take a look at this in a serious vein, Rodney. The descendants of child slavery should be not in this position right now. We should not be facing Jim Crow 3.0, and we are. So I challenge, in the month of the National Black Business Month, that our way out of this is we need some 21st century abolitionists, economic abolitionists, okay? And we as a people, we have to learn how to spend some of that $1.4 trillion in GDP consumption we contribute to GDP. We need to go from 1% to 3 to 5% of that money being spent with our businesses, the ones that still survive this. I'm just talking about 2% more. And we can make a big impact on creating jobs in our community. We have to spend money amongst ourselves. We have to turn it over in our communities. We have to believe in the concept of Black Wall Street, Rosewood, Auburn Avenue. We have to go back to go forward. We've got to invest in ourselves, in our businesses, spend our money with each other, train our folks and employ them. That's what we're going to have to do in this climate, sir. We're going to need economic abolitionists.
Yes, sir. And Rodney, you know that I've talked about on here that they use in 1940s and 1950s and early 1960s strategies.
Yes, sir.
To take us back.
Yes, sir.
To take America back. And I've said that we, in our community, in the Black community, we need to use some 1940s and 1950s and 1960s strategies in order to keep them from taking us back. Because what worked for our grandparents and great-grandparents should be able to work for us. Because guess what? What worked for their great-grandparents and grandparents is working for them.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? You got to fight fire with fire. And you can have all the AI in the world. It's not going to get us out of this. You know what I'm saying? And and I'm like anybody else. As far as, a man of faith,
Yes, sir.
But like Fannie Lou Hamer said, you can pray until you faint. But until you get up off your knees, God ain't going to just put it in your lap. It is time for us, like you saying, to bring back abolition.
Yes, sir.
Abolitionists. To bring back that kind of, I say all the time, I didn't coin this, but at the end of the day, the difference between a moment and a movement, we have all of these moments today.
Yes, sir.
But the difference between a moment and a movement is that in a movement, you got to sacrifice something.
Yes,
it could be your life.
Yes, sir.
It could be your treasure.
Yes, sir.
It could just simply be your blood on the street. But you have to sacrifice something. Whereas in a moment, you hold up a sign, you yell loud, and you go right back in the house and play your video game or watch some, I don't know, some reality show or whatever it is that you do, but that's the difference. And Rodney, you're right. We have to get back to wanting to have movements versus moments, man. We really do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We really
My brother, on the Black Man's Roundtable, on the Rodney Roundup, I'm declaring a national emergency for black business. A national emergency. That means we as a nation, we have to become a nation within a nation. And we have to look at ourselves in that way. And until we get to that point, we're going to continue to be slaves, both mentally and economically in this country.
The only fear that they've always had of us in our community, Rodney, excuse me, the only fear that they've always had of us in our community is for when we come together.
Yes, sir.
That is the greatest fear for them, is us coming together. And so if we can just get to that point, brother, let down all of the guards, let down all of the junk that we feel about each other, and just come together, I promise you, it will end so much of what is happening in Washington, D.C. right now today. And we know it's a big distraction. You and I know that, but the, and the media knows it, but it's like, let's, Rodney, I've talked about the red herring on here a lot, right?
Yes.
Let's just put the red herring out there, but hey, I hear you in your declaration of wanting the nation to, wanting us as a people to understand the importance of this month. But just like with Black History Month, every month has got to be, Black Business Month.
And if they're going to give us a rebate on tariffs, I want $20 billion out of the year to go to descendants of chattel slavery. Matter of fact, Rodney, that was 1960s numbers. How much should $20 billion be now? Give me a number.
Brother, astronomical.
100 billion? 200 billion?
60 billion in the 1960s. Today,
20
20 billion. I'm sorry. That is at least quadruple. It's at least triple to quadruple in my opinion.
So
I don't know, but I'm not an economist, so
then we should ask that a petition be signed, and Black Man's Roundtable can put it out, for a petition to go to the White House requiring that he sign an executive order to appropriate $100 billion a year from tariffs to go to descendants of chattel slavery for the next 10 years.
And Rodney, look, before I let you close it out, man, I have to let our audience know this, and that is that we are actually putting together, I've already spoke with you about it, you've already agreed,
yes, sir,
that we are putting together a special. For those of you that don't know, Rodney is on the Fulton County, right? The Fulton
yes,
County Reparations Task Force. And so he has institutional knowledge of reparations, what's happening with it, what should happen with it, but also part 2 of this special that we're going to do with Rodney, and we're going to squeeze it in. It's going to be Rodney and me only. We are going to squeeze it in. Part 2 is that Rodney is also a direct descendant of the Tulsa riots, direct blood descendant of the Tulsa riots. And so Black Wall Street. And I know that we've been, hearing a lot, about that lately. Some of us just now getting hip and getting up to speed on that. But Rodney has lived this. And so, but those two things, Black Wall Street and reparations, we are putting together a special, and we are going to squeeze it in. We might not have the shows, but we are going to put it in on a Tuesday, Rodney, and we're going to make this thing happen, brother. So I'm looking forward to it. We putting it together, and I'm just so glad you agreed to it, and I want people to see your full range, man, of who you are and what you mean to this platform.
I appreciate being here, my brother. I think it's very important that Black men take the leadership in moving our community forward. It's been our history. I'm not putting our sisters to the side, but they've carried this burden for us far too long. We need to step up. We need to become the abolitionists in the 21st century to move our people forward in this nation that's under a white nationalist regime.
And Rodney, I have put out the call. I have said to everybody who is involved with the Black Man's Roundtable that what our focus is, what our focus going forward is to hold people accountable.
Yes, sir.
Who benefit from our community in any kind of way. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you're affiliated with. If you benefit from our community, and if you're not doing what you're supposed to do,
right,
it is time for Black men specifically to do what we do best, and that is to hold people accountable. Look, the sisters have done what they've done over the last 20, 25 years.
Amen.
They have done the things they need to do with our children as far as education and so many other things. They have done it. But listen, I'm not saying that a woman cannot hold people accountable. I'm not saying that.
It's
but
our turn to do step up.
A man is specific. I mean, he is designed to do that. When he comes in the room, people should, act a little different. If everybody just acting the same when that man walks in the room, then you know what? That man really doesn't have any impact. So, Rodney, that I've been talking about that now for 2-3 weeks. And that is a part of who we are now on the Black Man's Roundtable is myself, you, Bobby, and any other Black men who are involved with the Black Man's Roundtable is holding people accountable who benefit from our community, brother.
Yes. And on a closing note, because we've been mentioning the sisters, it's important for our audience to know 300,000 Black women.
Got it right here in my notes.
Were laid off by the federal government, Doge, Elon Musk, and this white nationalist administration. 300,000. That's mothers, that's aunts, that's grandmothers, that's wives, that's sisters. I can't believe that was the intent all along, because the federal government has been one of the safe havens for us when we come out of the military and when we come out of college to seek a job. And my heart bleeds for what's happening to our community, and particularly to our sisters. 300,000, Rodney.
And Rodney, some of these people that doesn't look like you and I, they walk into these federal buildings, okay? They walk into these federal buildings and they see diversity. They see people that look like you and me. And you know what? And some of these people, that's why, me, Rodney, with this whole thing about, liberals and progressives and all that stuff. Look, let me tell you something. I've seen so-called liberals, Democrats, whatever, walk into a federal building, okay? We live in Atlanta.
Yes, sir.
We see white people, for instance, who for the first time ever that they've been in Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, and they see, like, what in the, you can see, but yet they have on a piece, they everything they have on indicates that they are a progressive person, right?
Right.
But you look at the uncomfortableness, because Atlanta is like no other city in America. Atlanta probably like no other city in the world.
That's right.
And you come here and we see the I don't know, the tightness that happens, And so that's why I say, and that's why you've heard me say, Rodney, that look, it ain't just there's a whole lot, in my opinion, brother, there are a whole lot of Democrats who are, or progressives and liberals, whatever, who are, who talk that stuff in the street, but they are very, very comfortable with a lot of the policies of Donald Trump. I don't care what no one say. I don't, look, it's anecdotal. I haven't done a study or anything like that, but the motto for the Black Man's Roundtable is we are out there in them suites and them streets.
Yes,
and
sir.
you know what? Them suites and them streets, especially them streets, they don't lie.
No,
so, say what you will, but there's a lot of people that wearing pussy hats and all this other kind of stuff, and they are, I'm not saying they're out there voting for Donald Trump or voting for Republicans, but I tell you what, I know one thing, they quietly agree with a lot of the policies that those people, that the Republicans, bring to the table.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Man, great show, Rodney. Thank you
great
so
show,
much.
Rodney. Great show.
Appreciate
Look, man, we're doing good.
Better.
We're right on time. Rodney, close it out, brother. Can't wait until we get this special done, and can't wait until a couple more weeks to see you again.
We get it together, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Until next time, we'll keep rounding them up. This is Rodney Littles.
Peace, Rodney.
Peace out.
Hey, family. If you like what you saw, visit our website at blackmansroundtable.com for more information or to check out more content. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace.